Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with daily technical update. It is Thursday, the 9th of January, and today we'll start with Novo Nordisk, the Danish pharmaceutical company producing. Excuse me, I have a little bit of throat issue or coughing issue at the moment. I do apologize about that. The Danish pharma company that is producing Wegovy, the weight loss product that has been very much talked about for quite some time. If you have been following me for the past year, so you have seen that midsummer last year or September around that time, I indicated that we had this shoulder-like pattern developing here on the weekly chart on Novo Nordisk. It was confirmed here back in September when it broke below its declining trend line. It's quite unusual for a declining trend line, but nevertheless, it did that. So it broke below, then back above. That doesn't bust it or anything, and then the sell-off really hit. And we had a potential target as indicating by the arrows here down to 588 area. It actually went much deeper. It dipped all the way down to the lower part of this consolidation area here from back in 2023. And also dipped below the 200 weekly moving average before bouncing strongly, closing just around this level here, around 587.88. On the daily chart, we can see what's actually going on. It was just, before Christmas, it actually had that massive sell-off there. But it bounced. However, will it then turn around? Not necessarily just yet, but I think the worst is over. And I think that we will see it slowly building a solid ground, but it will take some time before it actually goes into full swing bullish trend again. It is still under pressure. It's not unlikely that it could drop even further, but I think the worst is over, at least here, short to medium term. But if it takes out the lows here at 525, well, then there could be much more trouble ahead. But I don't think that will occur at all. I have a very small position in Novo Nordisk, so just as a disclaimer, I have to say that, but very, very small, just to have it a little bit. And I'm not planning to add it anytime soon. I want to see how this foundation here will develop in any meaningful way. While we are looking at Novo Nordisk, let's also look at the biggest competitor, Eli Lilly, that has been doing fairly well compared to Novo Nordisk. However, it has always also been under pressure, and the lows here from November at 711.40 is a key support area, just below the support line here, 724. If it takes out that, well, then we could also see a massive sell-off. We had this bearish engulfing candle here back in July, but it managed to bounce back. But we are technically in a bearish trend, but we are, I would actually say more or less in a wait and see mode. Let's see what's going on here. So the picture is not really clear on Eli Lilly, and I will get back to you when it's more clear. However, on the daily, we are below the cloud, we are below all moving averages, they're all declining. So the underlying pressure is there. Also, the RSI is indicating negative sentiment. Moving on to S&P 500, that yesterday was almost unchanged and is still this support area here and this gap area that will be key. We are in a negative sentiment, which is a little bit strange, I would say. Not strange, but we haven't had a confirmed downtrend, and we need that really with the lower lows, lower highs. And so we do have lower highs, but we really need to take out 5,832 to confirm that, and that will also probably close this gap area here. If we're looking at the weekly, we can see there's massive divergence on the RSI. RSI is declining, market moved higher, but still it is still holding on also above both of the rising trend lines here. So still grasping here, still really holding on by its nails. What is interesting is that the Nasdaq 100, a little bit different picture actually, because there is still positive sentiment on the daily RSI. It is forming a falling wedge-like pattern, and here on the chart itself, it actually forming a declining triangle-like pattern. it hasn't confirmed breakout direction. Breakout direction could confirm really where we are headed. So what we could also say is that often you see the breakout on the RSI actually before you see it on the actual price chart. So that is also worth to keep an eye on. If it starts moving above here and market also starts testing the upper falling trend line, maybe you will get a signal here before we actually do it on the price graph. But as we can also see here on the weekly, massive divergence on the RSI. So really in the trend exhaustion, we actually had this bearish engulfing. It's not that, how you can say, a clear one, meaning that the previous candle was not that big, so it's a little bit easy to say, but still it's there. So we actually do have a top and reversal candle in place, but it's just not yet confirmed. On the Dow Jones index, well, the Dow Jones index is a different picture than that actually, but it's also here at 42,220 key support, negative sentiment. So it looks a little bit similar to the S&P 500. If it takes out these two candles here and move, then I think we'll see a sell-off down to around 41,000. Different story with the European markets, and here is EuroStoxx50 that is in a bullish trend on short term, hovering around the 5,000 mark, positive sentiment on the RSI, and on the weekly also a positive sentiment and no divergence on the RSI. As we can see, the RSI is if it breaks back above a 60 threshold, it will confirm further upside potential for the EuroStoxx50. We can see the peak here was also back here from the peak here, and it's formed this triangle-like pattern here on the weekly chart. So that's really something to look out for the next few weeks. Let me just very quickly draw a trend line here. There we are. All right, yeah. So a triangle-like pattern it needs to break out of, and it seems like the breakout could be to the upside. But we are pausing a little bit here the next couple of days, it seems. However, on the DAX index, very close to new all-time highs. It didn't get all the way up there. It's trading around the 786 retracement at 20,336. There's no divergence on the positive sentiment on the RSI. There is, however, on the weekly. So the question is, which one will prevail? Will it be a EuroStoxx50 or will it be DAX? DAX is probably the strongest one. So if also the US markets are starting to give, that could be in a bit of a trouble. And we also had this top and reversal pattern here in place just before Christmas here. Top and reversal pattern, doji evening. Top and reversal pattern. However, if it closes above that peak at 20,523, then it will be cancelled, and it is being challenging at the moment. On Eurodollar has seen it being rejected here at the falling trend line here on the daily chart, maybe resuming downtrend or maybe just trying to get a little fresh air again and having another push. However, all moving average declining. We are negative sentiment, but there is divergence as we talk about, meaning we are in an exhaustive mode, at least short term. Because medium term, well, there's still here on the weekly chart, yeah, we got to 102.25. If it takes out that, well, then we are looking at a par value here at 1, and I think, it's just my opinion, I think it will reach that here sometime maybe in Q1. But we also we could see a correction because that has really been some of a move. So I will stay on the sideline a little bit with euro dollar to wait and see what's going on. Cable or sterling dollar, well, has resumed downtrend. Rejected the falling trend line here, couldn't get up to the 126, testing the rising trend line here on the RSI, but I think it will take it out, and we are looking at 122. We can also see here on the weekly chart, it is actually currently pushing below the support here at 123. Not much stopping it until around 120, and I think we will get there, and we're going to talk about UK gilts and UK interest rates later in this video. That we can see no one wants to own government debt at the moment, so they're just selling it off really heavily. So here we are actually really sell off in cable, and same picture or the opposite picture you can say in sterling. So sterling is being hammered at the moment. Here you have the euro sterling on the daily chart. but I've been talking for quite some time that it was testing this upper falling trend line in this wedge-like pattern here, and if it broke above, well, then there is potential up to 83.75, and now it actually went through it, and I think we will be looking at 84 and a half area and the 200 moving average coming down. It can also be a massive shift on the weekly. You see it's been declining for quite for the better part of last year or so. Building some divergence on the RSI, indicating trend exhaustion, and now it's bouncing, and it could bounce even further. Yen pairs, on the other hand, fairly boring. Dollar yen still crawling slowly higher, but divergence on the RSI is indicating trend exhaustion. But for now, the trend is up as long as you stay above 155.95, and there is room up to 162. Whether we'll get there or not, I'm not quite sure. At least not short term. Euro yen, fairly boring, so I will go fairly quickly. But Euro yen is still in this range here, around 162, 163. Needs to break above 165, or it needs to move back below the cloud and below the moving average here for going into potential bearish mode, and it will be confirmed below 159.80. So Euro yen really indecisive at the moment. More or less the same picture on Aussie yen, also trading sideways, but it's below the cloud, it's below the 55 and 100 moving average. Negative sentiment. I think we will see the bearish trend picking up or resuming fairly shortly, and we can draw a trend line here and say, okay, if it starts taking out that, well, then it's possibly resuming downtrend. Also, if RSI moves back below 40, then it will be confirmed further. And the sterling yen, well, can't really hold up despite having RSI positive sentiment, but I think it will confirm a downtrend here. We are about to confirm it. Lower low, lower high, and now also seems to mean we will get a lower low. If it takes out the 100 moving average, move back below the cloud area here, and RSI move back below 40, well, then expect a sell-off that could take sterling yen below 190. Aussie dollar rejected at the upper falling trend line. We talked about it the past couple of days, and now testing the lows here, and it seems like it will break lower. If we're looking at the weekly chart, we can see it will take out 61.70. If it does that, then we have to go all the way back here to 2020 to levels. So really at a crossroad, and I've said at the moment. Let's see here the next day, or well, actually towards the end of the week. Dollar Canada, that has really also been on the move lately. After sell-off, got below the minor support at 143.35, bounced crawling back above, and it was apparently a false break there. And we have no divergence on the RSI, indicating dollar Canada is likely to move higher in the coming days and weeks. Sterling Canada, well, sterling Canada is also, excuse me, on the move after massive sell-off. This shoulder pattern and neckline still playing out. It couldn't hold here at 178, testing the support resistance area here, 79.35, and now it's dropped all the way down to 200 moving average. And I think there's more sell-off in the pipeline for sterling Canada. I'll remove this one. I think we could see it pushing all the way down to 176. I think we will see it maybe not all the way down to 175, but it's in the cards. It is possible, but there's some support here at the moment. So I expect a little bit of maybe a correction. However, if it takes out, you will see here, uptrends, really also divergence. You see RSI values declining, exhaustion mode, and it seems like we are end of the road for sterling Canada. Euro-Swiss, well, still undecided around here, 94 below the 94.50 key resistance. In an uptrend, fragile though, but still in an uptrend, forming this ascending triangle-like pattern there. And I think we will see that for at least a week or so more. Dollar Swiss. Well, dollar Swiss is also bouncing strongly. We talked about it yesterday and the past 2 days, and it could push higher towards 91.5 and possibly also 92.45 on the medium term. The dollar index, more or less the same picture as dollar Swiss, obviously, bouncing strongly, could take out the 109.37. There's not really much resistance here. We are in a bullish trend on the medium term. There's no divergence indicating we're likely to see higher levels on the dollar index. Minor divergence on the daily, but it could be cancelled if it takes out the peak here at 109.37. Gold testing, and it did yesterday and also this morning, testing at 26.65 and a half. Resistance here above the 55 moving, still declining. So it will really be key if it can really close above this level. If it can, then there's potential higher to this 2,721 area here. And if we can get RSI back above 60 threshold, well, then there's really potential higher. If we're looking at the weekly chart medium term, well, we had this top and reversal pattern in place, but and of course we got a sell-off, but still gold finds strong bids, and there's no divergence on the positive sentiment on the RSI, indicating we could see much higher levels on gold in the going into Q1. The silver, well, it's struggling for momentum after broken above this minor resistance here at 29.90, forming this little double pattern here. There should be potential up to 31, but we're not quite there yet. It's really struggling at the moment. So keep an eye on that. If it takes out and closes below 29.80, well, then we could see a sell-off in silver. So all fragile around the board, also on the gold, of course. It's not clear cut yet. Copper, very strong bounce to the 786 retracement, actually moving higher, and we are now in a positive sentiment on the RSI. I think we'll see a test of 433.50 fairly shortly, but then we have the 200 moving average coming up here, adding to the resistance. If we can close above it, well, then there's potential higher towards 445, 450. On the crude oil, we have a WTI after breaking higher. It actually turned around, forming this bearish engulfing here, now testing the minor support at 72.80, but we are in a bullish trend. If we're looking at the weekly chart, we can see we are also a very strong bounce that could test the upper falling trend line here just below 78.46, minor resistance, and then we have the cloud area. There's still potential up to that, so let's see here the next few weeks. Brent crude oil also spike a little bit, still above the clouds, below the 76.54, but I'm not too concerned about that. I actually I think the cloud area is still more relevant. Positive sentiment, no divergence, and it seems we are also pushing higher here on the weekly, at least as a corrective move after a months-long bearish market. Dutch TTF gas, well, went below the 38.2 retracement, which we talked about yesterday, couldn't hold on. Now at the 50% correction, and the 55 moving average could dip down to the 61.8 at 43.5. It is not unlikely. However, the RSI is still in positive sentiment, and if it doesn't close below 40, well, then we could still see a correction or a bounce higher. And medium term, we are still in a bullish trend. However, there's a little bit slight divergence here, but there's potential up to 56, 57. Let's see about that. Henry Hub, still the same story. For further upside potential, really needs to close above $4, but I think the American households are happy that it hasn't materialized. On the US 10-year Treasury yields, we had a spike up yesterday, very close to, you can see here on the weekly, where it is such an important level of 4.73.5. That was the spike here in 22nd of April last year. And then we got this doji yesterday. If we get a negative candle today, well, then it could be a top and reversal pattern in place, at least short term. The question is, of course, how much will it turn around? I'm not quite so sure it will be that much. And we still, as long as we're above 4.5%, well, we're still in a bullish trend, so maybe it won't be that for that long. The minor divergence on the RSI, but on the weekly, we are still in a bullish trend. No divergence on the RSI, indicating likely higher levels. The 2-year still in this range here between 4.15 and 4.37. And the EuroBund future, Let's have a look at EuroBund future. That's been hit by massive sell-off, taking out the 786 retracement here, and there's potential lower negative sentiment, no divergence, indicating we could see lower levels on the EuroBund future. It's on the weekly, we can see how it's currently testing, or very close to testing the lower rising trend line here. If it takes out that, then the support at 130.58 could come under pressure, and if that is taken out, well, then all bets are off. Then we'll see a massive sell-off in EuroBund. Looking at the UK 10-year, well, that's a different story, and let's move into the monthly chart on that one. And I need to adjust that a little bit. Sorry about that. Here we are. Sorry, let's move back here. That is a little bit of a worry for me. There we are. So here we have the monthly chart looking back. Where is UK 10-year government yields? Well, it's actually pushing higher, taking out the resistance here, or the peak here from back in August. I think we'll see a move up to around 5.5%. We have to go back all the way to 2007 to see levels like that, and that is also the 161.8 projection of this correction move here. So a push to 5.25 is in the cards, and possibly all the way up to around 5.5, 5.50. If it takes out that, well, then we are looking at 6%, and I wouldn't be surprised if they start talking about it if it moves above 5%. Finally, on crypto, where we saw the Bitcoin being hammered down after peaking above 102,000, and now we are down here in the 90s. Still support around 90s, but 6.8. So keep an eye on that level there if it takes out that. Still positive sentiment on the RSI, but we are a bit under pressure at the moment. Ethereum, well, also under pressure after being hit by selling after hitting the 61.8. Key support here around 3,000. That should be observed. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day, and talk to you again tomorrow.